Hello, lovely. It's Friday afternoon, and I hope you are having an excellent Friday afternoon and have something really nice planned for the weekend because certainly in London, but I suspect for most of the country, it's really nice weather. That sort of 25, 26 degrees. We seem to go between 18 degrees the other day and now 30 degrees today, which is a bit extreme, but the weekend looking good. I think we are planning on going to Kew Gardens at some point this weekend where there is a sculpture exhibition, and I love outdoor sculpture, probably my favourite form of art. So probably us and a million other people heading off to Kew. And of course, if you're working this weekend, my thoughts are with you. Many, many years that I did as a shift worker in journalism. So I know how frustrating that can be when everyone else is having a lovely time and the weather is good. But hopefully it's work you enjoy. If not, come speak to me, because that's what I try and do, is to get you out of jobs that you're not in love with anymore and figure out what else it is that you'd like to be doing. So send me a DM. All right, so we will continue our deep dive into the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, something many of you have probably come across, maybe read half of it. Well, now I'm going through each of the steps in each of my lives, and if you, you could pick up some pointers along the way. I don't think you need to read everything. Hopefully from each video that I do for you, there is something that useful that you can take. So we're moving on to the second law of good habits today. The last few days we've been looking at the first law, which is to have an obvious trigger, a cue for your habits. And the second law is about how to make it attractive, because what you need to do is to crave to do the habit. I know that feels like a long shot at this stage, especially if it's a habit that you're not so sure that you're going to enjoy. So basically, the more attractive it is, the more likely you'll do it. And this is all to do, well, a lot to do with dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter and a hormone in your brain, which helps us feel pleasure and is a very integral part of the brain's reward system. So an experiment that was done tells us quite a lot about dopamine. I mean, I keep hearing about dopamine, but I don't think I realized quite how important it is. So there was an experiment they did with rats, and the scientists blocked the release of dopamine in the rats. So they had none of it flowing around their brain, or didn't have access to it. And the rats basically lost the will to live. They had no motivation to do anything, including eat or drink. And so within a few days, they were dying of thirst. And that's how powerful dopamine is. They could still feel pleasure, because they tested that as well, which is another kind of dopamine hit, but they couldn't motivate themselves to do anything without the dopamine. So the dopamine is kind of what causes the desire. And if you haven't got any desire, then you don't want to take any action. And if you're completely without dopamine, then you may very well die of thirst, like the rats did. When they reversed this with some rats and they flooded them with dopamine, well, they performed all their behaviors at breakneck speed. So that's how powerful it is. So when you think of sort of highly addictive things that we do, eating junk food, maybe social media, taking drugs, anything like that, there are high levels of dopamine associated with that. And so it makes sense that we keep being motivated to do those things, because that's what the dopamine is doing. So what we can learn from that is that while you do get some dopamine when you get the thing you want, you get some sort of pleasure hit from that, it's when you anticipate the thing that it's has such an impact. It's the anticipation, the thinking about doing the thing, that releases the dopamine that motivates you to do it. So that anticipation of reward that gets you to do something, not the fulfillment of the reward, is what we want to think about here when we're talking about using it with our habits. So the only way we're going to manage to do our habits is if it's really attractive and we release that dopamine. We actually have to crave it, and that will motivate us to do it, which I know, when you're thinking of a habit like exercise maybe, is seems a difficult thing to do. So according to James Clear, according to James, the answer is to do something called temptation bundling. So we need to link something that we like to do or even love to do with our new habit. So if you need to go on the treadmill every day, maybe you could watch your favorite show on Netflix at the same time. The other thing is to do something straight afterwards, having a cup of tea after you've called 3 clients or done 3 emails. And hopefully, eventually, you look forward to doing those emails because you know you're going to get to have a cup of tea afterwards. And so your brain starts linking those 2 things together. So in terms of practical steps that you could do, is you could make a list of all the activities that you find enjoyable, that you find really tempting. So list maybe your favorite TV shows, podcasts that you want to listen to, all that kind of thing. Also make a list of possible rewards you could give yourself, which I have to say, I remember I did this a lot when I was studying many, many years ago at university. I had a whole chart of when I finished this essay, I'd get to watch Room with a View or something. And I remember having this whole chart, and it really was the only thing that got me through what I needed to do was to have some of those rewards. So you've got your list of activities you like doing, a list of reward type things you could give yourself, and then you need to pair those things with the habits that you're working to put into place. Which ones would go well with something else? Maybe you can listen to your favorite podcast while doing some cleaning. Maybe you could watch some trashy TV while doing the ironing. That is something I definitely do. It certainly makes it more attractive. And then you can also be thinking about combining that with the habit stacking that we talked about earlier, like having things in 3s or sort of little stacks of habits that you can do one after the other. So that's something to have a go at over the weekend. Think about the things that you really enjoy. And the trick is, of course, that you then have to kind of say, well, you only get to do these things when you do those things, which is maybe a little bit harder. But certainly something to try and see if that encourages you to do the things that you really want to be doing. Have a fabulous weekend.